Hi, I'm Kelly at Book and Paper Arts, and today I have a lesson showing how to turn paper scraps into pieces of paper, like this. I always like finding new ways to use up paper scraps because I make journals and books and things, which means I have a ton of scraps, and I bet you do too. I have 4 boxes like this. So it's always good to find something to do with them. Previously, I showed how to make small journals, small books, using paper scraps. And then how to fill them up using paper scraps. There's also a tutorial here showing how to use scraps to make a paper book scroll. And if you missed any of these videos, I'm going to link to them. Check out the text box below and you'll see the videos for how to make these. Today, the technique for making this paper, this page, is very similar to what we did with the paper scrolls. It starts with paper scraps, and then we're going to glue those together into a crazy quilt, something like this. After this, we're going to add layer and layer of color and texture and gesso and ink and stencils and the kitchen sink to make your pages really gorgeous and grungy and wow. After that, stay tuned because towards the end of the video, I've got ideas about how you can use these papers. It's a lot of look and some suggestions might not come amiss. If you like journal arts, if you like book and paper arts, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and be sure and turn on the notifications. And that way you will have more of them in your life. Let's go play with scraps. For this project, you are going to need some kind of grease-proof paper. This is similar to a parchment, but you could use a wax paper, a plastic bag, whatever it is that you use that's your nonstick paper of choice. You need some glue. I'm using gel medium, but you could use a white craft glue, Mod Podge. You could use a glue stick. I'm using this because it's what I've got on hand today. And you need your scraps. So for me, scraps are things that are left over from previous projects. Sometimes tearing them out to make a handmade book or making a video here, or things I've torn out of magazines. Anyway, so it's just here's some of those paper napkins that we've been turning into paper, tissue paper, you name it. A crazy quilt. I like to start with kind of a bigger chunk to start anchoring my pieces. This does not have a backing to it. It's just going to be the scraps glued to themselves. So you kind of need something to anchor as you get started. Then as you go, we can start adding more decorative pieces. Yeah. And smaller bits. Now, I am not going to measure exactly where the glue goes. This is, as you can see, this is a very, very, very messy project and very forgiving. So if the glue smudges where it shouldn't be, that's not going to hurt too much. Okay, so let's put that there. Let's see. Take some of this. Yeah. is a frontispiece from an old book. So make your first pieces a little bit chunkier and start to make them take the shape of a piece of paper. Normally when I glue things down here, I don't make you watch the... I tend to turn the camera on to like a double time so that it's gluing can be kind of boring. But I think that for the first round, it's going to help to see how you get that first really important crazy quilt layer down. So just stick with me for a little bit more. While I give you an idea of how to make that first layer come together. You don't have to try to make sense of this. But it will, if you're like me, you know, I work with a lot of florals. So it's inevitable that my scrap bag is going to have a lot of similar things in it. Theme-wise and otherwise. And it's going to be the same for you. But don't worry about it making sense. We'll be getting to that. Just keep building. At this point, it may be sticking a little bit to your paper. Just from time to time, lift it up. And I haven't had one yet that didn't lift up, even after a ton of gluing. So just be gentle and keep lifting. Now I have what is pretty much the shape of a piece of paper. I'm going to go around and make sure that everything is glued to everything, because in this kind of loosey-goosey gluing way, there's probably some seams that didn't connect. And again, don't worry about it because we're going to keep adding layers. If there's glue on the outside, it's going to make your liquid react in cool ways. So just let this be really distressed. This is what I call the first pass. Getting your solid piece down and started. For the second pass, I want to start adding smaller scraps for interest. And again, I am not overthinking it. I'm not trying to make it any kind of a perfect planned out thing. I'm just adding pieces from the scrap box that look good as I pick them up. This was some stamping on tracing paper. Oh yeah. So just start picking out smaller pieces. This is some tissue paper, and either adding them or ripping them and adding them to your sheet in a way that adds interest. At this point, you might want to start looking for small pieces that cover up a few of your seams. Of course, it's a crazy quilt. Some of the seams are going to show, but you can also soften that a little bit. So I've got a little bit of stiffened napkin there. And that's going to soften out where those corners are. I know it's making new edges, but I think you can see what I mean. Here's a little bit of handwritten text. It's just a teeny thing, but I was sure wasn't going to waste it. Yeah. That's also going to break up some of the flowers. Just a little. So just keep on adding until you think your page looks interesting. This is the end of the second pass. It's where I've added smaller, thin pieces for interest throughout. And I have my piece of paper. Now I want to decorate it. Add some color and stuff. I am using soft chalk pastels for the first round. You don't have to have this. You could use watercolor pencils, or if you have ink tense sticks, whatever you've got. Use a box of crayons. Just do some mark making. And for me, I usually start that on the seams, some of the seams here. And that's an olive green. I'm going to add, I think green and purple go together weirdly well. I am not going to cover every seam. We just want to sort of randomly go in and pop some color. Let's see, blue is always good and welcome. It's resisting on some of these glossy pieces, and that's okay too. I have plenty of pieces that are matte that are going to let me distribute the color that way. Now what I'm going to do is I could just smudge that in, and that's always a good look. And what you're doing with that is softening that edge. I'm also going to move it around with some water, because soft chalk pastels like this are semi-water soluble, and they will let you move them around with some water. So I'm activating the color here and moving it out into these spaces. So now I'm tinting with that mauvey color. Just pulling that all out. Let's do one more. And it's pooling, and I like that, so I'm letting the colors, if they pool together, that's just fine. And so you get the idea. Now I'm going to add a few more off camera. All right then, I'm going to say that's pass number 3, layer number 3. Now it's time to add the embellishing. I'm going to start with a little bit of mark making. This is optional. I don't always do it. To add detail to some of these glossy pieces, I'm using an acrylic marker because it will stand up to the gloss. But if you know, especially if you're working on the flat paper, you could, again, use watercolor pencils or whatever it is you've got. to make a few marks. I do like a good spiral. See, here's the black acrylic marker. I actually got these at the discount craft store. And yeah, just going to go in and add a little bit of some squiggles. Now for the final pass, stencils and drizzles. You could also use stamps or whatever mixed media technique that you really like. I'm kind of stencil happy. So I'm going to use this in several different ways. First, I'm just going to add with the blending tool, just add some here and there. It's very subtle because it's standing up to all of the stuff we've already put on there, and that is okay by me. So just pull it out because we're not actually stenciling so much as mark making using a stencil. Next, I have this. This is a kind of a splatter guard, I think, for cooking. I got it at Poundland for £1, and it was huge, and I cut it up into little squares so I could use it as for mark making. Over here, I've got some avocado ink. Now, I like to use ink, but you could use watercolor or watered down acrylics or fountain pen ink or other water solubles, whatever you got. And what I'm doing is I'm just putting some of that ink on the splatter guard. Just going to work that in. And see, isn't that a cool pattern? I love you, splatter guard. So when you're first putting down the ink on this thing, it doesn't look like it's really going into it. And that's because it's pretty much sitting on top. But that's okay too. It's a look. Let's see. Let's go down here. Just working that in a little. And there. Ooh, yeah. So we get a second pull there. A little. Okay. Here is some oversized bubble wrap. And it is also going to let me make some marks. I'm going to load this up with some blue ink. I'm just using an ink pad like this. And again, it doesn't look like much. I'm just tapping the ink on there. But I'm going to activate it a little bit with some water in this mister. And press that down. And we've got some marks here that look like bubbles. Or polka dots. Even better, polka dots. I'm also going to add some of that ink, which I now have on a makeup sponge, using a stencil. And it's going to be messy. It's not going to be the precise way that we usually think of stenciling. Again, just using it more for mark making. Next, some drizzles because they make me so happy. I've got these in a mini spritzer. Let's see. I'm just going to work those around a little. And let's go down here. So yeah, to add a little bit of balance. Yeah. If you're using soft pastels, you can get those out again now, because if you take a card or something and scrape your pastel into, this where I put the ink is still quite wet. It's going to set in to the ink, and you're going to add some mark making that way, some highlights. It's almost like a faux brusho. And you can use different colors, but I thought yellow would brighten it up a little. Add some contrast. And I think I'll add a few more polka dots, oversized polka dots. So I've activated that ink. I'll just go down here and here. Now, splatters. And like every step here, they are optional. I've got gesso that I'm loosening up with some water. You could use acrylic paint, watercolor, chalk paint. And as with all this mark making, use what kind of materials speak to you. I like ink and stencils. Maybe you like something else. Golly. Okay, so I've got this gesso on my brush here, and I'm just going to tap it over different parts of the page and make some splatters. You could also do some colored splatters if you've got acrylic paint. Here's the finished page. And here is another one that I made yesterday. And here are two smaller ones. And let's start here with looking at ways that you can use these in your work. The first thing I'm going to suggest is just tear them for fodder. And let's see. Some parts are harder to tear than others because the paper is thicker. That's okay. Let's see. And if you don't like the white strips, you can always go in with an ink pad and do something about that. Or color it in some way. And now I have, if you tear it up for fodder, you're going to have pieces that you can then use in your pages. That would go really well there. So that's the first idea. Just go ahead and tear them up and make another stash. I'm also starting to use these for another kind of stash thingy, is to use them to make circles for a different kind of fodder. And all I've done here is I've taken a little jam jar, or you can use a makeup. Let's see. Here's a cap from some laundry detergent. You can use the top of a makeup jar, a yogurt container, whatever you've got to draw different size circles. And then cut those out. This is the back. I don't know what it's going to look like till I do it. Look at how cute those turned out. Even better than I expected. And I can definitely see that I am going to be making a stash of these, because they would be good for any kind of a page, but especially for adding embellishment and filling up space. I could see where these are going to be ideal. Also, if you're doing a collage piece, you can suggest some kind of celestial objects up here. They look very, yeah, something like that. You could make these into tags. If you make junk journals or things like that, and you like to add tags into your pockets, well, you've got some crazy ones now. And I am, of course, going to be using mine for journal pages and journal covers and for handmade books. Because the backs of these are kind of distracting, you can do a couple of things. One is you could go ahead and decorate the back just the way you did the front. And then you'd have a two-sided page. But to get this going, what I did was I glued, this is just an old dictionary page, and I glued it to the back of this one. You could use watercolor paper, scrapbook pad, copier paper, tissue paper, whatever you got. And then I tore it just the way we did with the fodder. And now I have this super cool strip that I have this little blank book, and I could just bind my book into this as a really cool, messy, distressed, grungy cover. Like that. And the text will show. Or I could make it into a page that's going to go into a journal. Like this. I've already bound this book, but I could either tip this in with a hinge, or the next time I make a journal, I could just put this in the signature and bind it in like this. And there you go. Speaking of making handmade books, I have 2 new handmade art journals in my online shop. If you'd like to see them, you can follow the link that's in the text box below this video. If you have any feedback or any questions, especially if you have ideas about how you might use pieces like this, please put them in the comments below and we can compare notes. Until next time, get up and go make something.